to congratulate you on your appointment to the ministry, sir. Looking forward to working with you, and I'm sure our two agencies are doing the same. Let me just also take a minute to give those online just a quick update on the progress of our joint board activities. We continue to meet monthly. We have a number of working committees. Chief among them is our merger committee, made up of several members of the board who are professional and thought leaders in their own areas of chosen profession, which impacts, in fact, quite a bit of the work that we have been charged to do in furtherance of the completion of the merger of the two agencies. Now, we still have quite a bit of work to do. We are focusing on the administrative portion of the merger, whilst the legislative framework is still being handled at the policy level. But we are sufficiently happy with the progress so far. We're going to continue to push as hard as we can, as far as we can, as quick as we can, to ensure that we meet the timelines outlined a year or so ago for us. Obviously, Minister, we will continue to be guided by your wisdom on this, and where there are changes and our new paradigms that you would like us to embark on, we will certainly be at your service. So with that, I'd like to first of all call upon the Executive Director of the Fair Trading Commission, Mr. David Miller, to give a quick year in review and look forward for the agency. David.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning. Good morning, Minister Hill. Good morning, Minister Dunn. Good morning, Mrs. Allen. Members of the media, all. The Fair Trading Commission operates on the premise that competitive markets are central to efficiency, innovation, investment, and economic growth. The FTC's core values of professionalism, confidentiality, transparency, independence, and impartiality are critical to its effectiveness and are a hallmark of its work. In conducting investigations and undertaking market studies, the FTC uses international best practices which require all relevant stakeholders' involvement in the processes, that is, the party being investigated, other market participants at all levels of the supply chain, as well as consumers. The FTC's conclusions are based on empirical evidence, actual data, and verifiable information. Today, our message will focus on three areas. Firstly, a summary of the sectors that we have investigated or where we have made competition advocacy interventions during the past 6 months. Secondly, the FTC guidelines to reviewing mergers, acquisitions, and joint ventures, and this area is of particular interest to business enterprises. And thirdly, our work on strengthening internal work processes for increasing organizational efficiencies. The FTC focuses on those sectors and markets that are most impactful on the recovery of our economy. Accordingly, we prioritize areas such as construction, energy and electricity, telecommunications, finance, as well as online and e-commerce facilities. In keeping with our mandate and focus, this year we completed 4 merger investigations, one in the vehicles fleet management market, another in the market for insurance brokerage services. The third one was in the beverages market, and the fourth in the market for medical supplies. We also completed investigations into the abuse of dominant position by Supreme Ventures Limited, which includes an assessment of payouts by that company, and also an investigation into the market for online voucher platform services for lifestyle products and services sold in Jamaica. Concerning the latter investigation, merchants promote their products and services online through a platform owner. We concluded that the agreement between a particular platform owner and merchants contained exclusive provisions that were likely in breach of the Fair Competition Act. The FTC has been in discussion with the platform owner, and it is expected that a resolution will be arrived at in short order. Changes in the agreement will allow for other market participants to compete more effectively for merchants. In so doing, bring more choices and competitive prices to our consumers. During the past 6 months, we engaged in several competition advocacy initiatives. The notable ones were our work with the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology on 2 areas relating to the petroleum sector and another issue in the energy sector. Our examination of the Electricity Act concluded that although there are no competition concerns with the Act itself, areas within the all-island electricity license granted to the Jamaica Public Service Company may raise competition concerns, and therefore we will be examining the license in the upcoming financial year. Concerning the telecommunications sector, we continued our work with the Spectrum Management Authority through a public consultation exercise regarding the implementation of a screening mechanism for assignment of mobile spectrum beyond a threshold level. And this will lead to the benefit of our telecommunications providers and eventually to our consumers. We also completed assessments of competitive concerns arising from the Electronic Transactions Act, the Land Surveyors Act, and we submitted a proposal to amend the Financial Services Commission Act to address information sharing between the FSC and the FTC. We completed market studies on competition in auditing services, as well as in the nursing and care homes sector. Nursing homes provide services to a vulnerable segment of our society, and the study included recommendations that were made to the Ministry of Health and Wellness for having a more robust regulatory framework for that sector. The recommendation to improve nursing homes operations and increase value to consumers are, firstly, that the Ministry of Health and Wellness should provide adequate resources to their institutions and facilities unit to carry out its functions. Secondly, information regarding complaints, procedure, and redress systems should be more readily available to the public. And thirdly, it should be mandatory for nursing homes to provide certain critical information to the public. Additionally, the staff published consumer guidelines for selecting a nursing homes, and we also issued consumer guidelines for online shopping. These studies and guidelines are posted on the FTC's website, located at www.jftc.gov.jm. We are nearing completion on market studies on digital payment systems, which is an area within the financial sector, and another into the wholesale supply of broadband services in the telecommunications industry. The second area for today's briefing is the FTC publishing its guidelines to reviewing mergers, acquisitions, and joint ventures. The guidelines are targeted primarily at business enterprises, and it briefly explains the internal process used by the staff when assessing mergers, acquisitions, and joint ventures. The FTC may review a merger whether or not it has been advised beforehand. Consequently, there may be risks for enterprises if parties fail to notify the FTC of their intention to merge. And therefore, the guidelines provide greater certainty to business enterprises undertaking such transactions. These guidelines are based on international best practices and are model of guidelines used in other jurisdictions, including the United States Horizontal Merger Guidelines and the ICN's Model Guidelines. The guidelines will, 1, define the transactions that are examinable under the Fair Competition Act. The FTC has a responsibility to review merger activities and may investigate on its own initiative mergers that it has not been notified about. Secondly, the guidelines describe the internal process that we undertake, including the estimated time for completing the assessment. And thirdly, the guidelines describe the critical issues that are examined when the FTC conducts assessments. And these issues could include the relevant market. Will the merger likely substantially lessen competition? What efficiencies will the merger create for the market? And how does the market, the economy, and consumers benefit as a whole when two entities or three entities are merging? And again, the guidelines will be made available on our website. The third and last area being discussed today is our continuous work on strengthening internal processes. In the upcoming financial year, the FTC will be launching its new case administration document system, which is a customized electronic case and data document management system that includes an electronic library of cases, reports, presentations, and documents. It also improves the interface and communication channel between informants and the staff. We will continue to engage our staff in training and development to improve staff competencies in sectors of importance to Jamaica's economy, so that we are able to detect and address anti-competitive practices early, and also provide advice to regulators and policymakers on competition matters. In closing, I thank my staff for their continued dedication and commitment to improving Jamaica's competition culture and enforcing competition law in Jamaica. And I thank our parent ministry, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, for its continuous support and in facilitating our work. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, David. And as you thanked your staff, and I listened to you go through the work that they've done, I also want to thank you for your continued stewardship of the Fair Trading Commission and the work that you continue to do. So thank you as well. So let us, we heard from the FTC. We now will take the update from Ms. Dulcie Allen for the Consumer Affairs Commission. Dulcie.
Thank you very much, Chairman White. Minister, Senator the Honorable Alvin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, State Minister in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, other members of the Board of the Consumer Affairs Commission and the Fair Trading Commission, Mr. David Miller, the Executive Director of the Fair Trading Commission, our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Fancia Bennett Templar, our CTD, Chief Technical Director, Ms. Michelle Parkins, other senior members of the ministry, colleagues, all members of the media. I am very, very pleased this morning just to share with you how the team at the Consumer Affairs Commission has been working to protect and to empower you, our consumers. Indeed, we are all consumers. In carrying out our mandate, we take a three-pronged approach. We do consumer education, we handle complaints, and we do market surveillance. So today, I'll be reporting to you what we have done since the financial year up to the end of January. We are aware that the consumers today are facing a lot of challenges, high prices, and it is just not a very good time for us as consumers. But we know that we are a resilient set of people, and we know that we will be able to maneuver and to handle these very challenging times, which is not just confined to Jamaica, but is a global phenomenon right now. And so we will see how best we can assist you consumers to navigate during these very challenging times. In terms of handling of complaints, year to date we have handled 1,431 complaints, and we have resolved 911. Now this is just about a 64% resolution rate. Compared to what was happening last year this time, we are basically along the same path in terms of numbers of complaints and also in terms of our resolution rate. But certainly we are assured that by the end of the financial year, our figures will look much, much better as we tie up some of those challenging cases that we have been handling throughout the year. In terms of our compensation to aggrieved consumers, we have collected on behalf of all those persons who lodged complaint to us, $23.3 million year to date. And this includes the $7.6 million that we would have been awarded from the tribunal. So if you take out the $7.6 million, our compensation for this year to date is $15.7 million. Compared to what was happening last year at this time, we have seen significant improvement in terms of compensation to aggrieved consumers, because last year this time we were basically about $12 million in terms of compensation. So we have seen some improvement in that regard. In terms of our complaints, the top three categories remain basically electrical equipment and appliances. 29.18% of our complaints accounted for in this category. And utilities, 16.92%. Now, in recent times, we have seen some uptick in complaints as it relates to utility complaints. And the basic problem is really service delivery, in terms of telecoms, drop calls, broadband issues, the JPS and Water Commission, the problem with their billing, and just in terms of service delivery also. And other services 13.69%. In terms of the compensation, the top three categories, number one, again, is electrical equipment and appliances. And this continues throughout the years. The number one complaint is really in this area. And so we have $5.8 million that we have collected on behalf of aggrieved consumers. Motor vehicle and parts is next in line, $4.293 million, and furniture, $1.4 million. In terms of our outreach, we do consumer education, and we have seen almost a doubling of our direct outreach programs this year compared to last year. We are aware that there are challenges now that relates to COVID. We are not able to do face-to-face interactions as much as we are accustomed to. But for this year, we have directly impacted 24,258 through 285 activities. In terms of our market surveillance, we continue to provide information for consumers. Now, we believe that once you are educated, once you have the information, you are able to make informed decisions. And so we provide market surveillance activities. We have seen a 54% increase in terms of our surveillance of the market, the number of surveys that we have done during this year, because we have basically enhanced and broadened the type of survey that we do. So we are doing surveys as it relates to the testing facilities for COVID-19. Yes, we have also improved in terms of the number of surveys that we do for the groceries, the gasoline, hardware items, school books, back to school time, and banking fees as well. You are very aware that this has been a very topical issue in the media in recent times, and we continue to provide the information to our consuming public. We are encouraging consumers that even though we are faced with these high prices, you know, a high price, increase in price is never a good thing for a consumer. That's not good news for us as consumers. But we have some facilities at the Consumer Affairs Commission that can assist you in maneuvering. There is a booklet that we have online that is called Eating Right When Money Tight. We have put together some recipes to assist you to be able to have nutritious meals at the same time on a very limited budget. During these challenging times, we have to do more budgeting. We have to be more intentional in our spending. We have to ensure that we plan a little better in terms of what we will do, what we will buy, in terms of prioritizing. So we have to survive during these times, and that is the message I want to send across to all our consumers. We have to empower ourselves. We have to take a little more responsibility for our spending, and we have to ensure that we do what is best for us as consumers, and that we are vigilant, that we are discriminating, that we shop around. This is what we have to tell you now to assist you. And also we have an app that we have developed just for you. So we ask that you download the app. It is called CAC Jamaica app. It gives you information on consumer issues. It also gives you an opportunity to lodge a complaint. It also gives you the opportunity to compare prices in different supermarkets depending on where you are. So if you're in Kingston, for example, in Ligani area, and you want to know exactly what is it that which supermarket you can go to get the best prices of a particular package, then we ask that you go on our system, go on our price inquiry tool, and then you will put your basket of goods in and you will see exactly where you can go to get best prices. So we continue to provide the type of information for you to equip you so that you, as I said before, can make more informed choices. In terms of our work, we are in the process of developing a national consumer policy, and we're advanced with this now. It should be completed within the next 6 months or so. And this really is pulling together all the different agencies that have some component, some aspect of their mandate has to do with consumer protection. So we are streamlining, and so we can regularize to ensure that consumers are not confused as to where to go when they have a different type of challenge. So that is being done. And also the Microcredit Act is in force now, and we have been doing some sensitization program. The month of February saw the Consumer Affairs Commission focusing on financial literacy. So we're helping persons to do proper budgeting, how to manage your credit, if you have become delinquent in your payment, what you can do, that type of thing. That we have done through our Facebook Live activities and also face-to-face interaction with our consumers. So we are helping to provide you with information that you can utilize. I would just like to reiterate our commitment to you. Our commitment to you, the consuming public, is that we will provide timely and relevant information for you. We will be expeditious in the handling of our complaints once you make a report to us. And we'll also continue our market surveillance. We'll have more interactions with you, more town hall meetings, that type of thing, so that we can put together providers of goods and services as well as consumers, so we can have that type of conversation, that type of interaction, to see how best we can partner as we face, well, beyond now. I would just like to bring to your attention also that March 15 every year is World Consumer Rights Day. And so we are joining with the rest of the world. The umbrella organization is Consumers International, with headquarters in London, and we have in excess of 240 members in 120 different countries. And this year they have put together a theme, and the theme is Fair Digital Finance. Fair Digital Finance. But as usual at the Consumer Affairs Commission, we try to tweak the theme to deal with our realities here in Jamaica. And we thought of putting it a little more intimate, yes, because everywhere you go now, everything is online, everything is digital. And I know many of our consumers are facing challenges of how they can navigate, especially our more vulnerable consumers. So we're going to be putting things together. And we have themed our World Consumer Rights Day as the CAC and U, Fair Digital Finance. We're going to be looking at the different aspects that affect us. Utilities are now being paid online. Everybody has to go online to pay utilities. So water, light, telecoms, we'll be looking at those areas. And we're also going to be looking at financing and accessing good credit. We're going to look at the pensions. I know a lot of persons, when you listen to the radio, a lot of persons complain about the pension. We're going to be having persons from that area to speak to us, from the NHT as well, the Credit Bureau, microcredit, which I spoke about earlier, and generally banking issues. So these are the areas we're going to be looking at for World Consumer Rights Day. And the main activity for that day will be a town hall type setting where we will be meeting with both consumers, regulators, providers, all. We're going to be in one room virtually to see how best we can handle this situation and assist consumers. So, as I said before, we are here for you at the Consumer Affairs Commission. We ask that you avail yourself of the information that we provide, avail yourself of the services we offer. Our whole aim is really to have a population of vigilant, assertive consumers, persons who not only know their rights as consumers, but also their responsibilities, and not only know them, but they're able to exercise them. we want to have vigilant consumers. We want to have consumers who know exactly what they are about. And as a result of this, we know we'll have a better market. So let us avail ourselves, as I said before, of what we have to offer at the Consumer Affairs Commission. And it is our pleasure. I just want to thank the team at the Consumer Affairs Commission and all those persons, the ministry, all the persons who assist us, members of the media who assist in disseminating information from time to time, other agencies. I want to thank you all. And we look forward to a great new financial year as we move forward in assisting consumers and empowering our consumers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dulcie, as well. And like I did before with David, as much as you've thanked your staff, we'd like to also thank you for your continued diligence and service to the organization. There's one thing that you mentioned that I thought I would want to highlight, because as in your usual humbled self, you didn't emphasize the importance of the consumer compensation for aggrieved consumers. Year over year is actually a 95% increase from 12 million to 23.4 million. It's an outstanding achievement, and it is important that we identify these nuggets when they exist. I also want to encourage those online and of course all around us to look out for World Consumer Rights Day this year. The issue of digital finance has taken about to open many new roads, I suspect, and all consumers should begin to avail themselves of as much information as they can get. So thanks again, Dulcie, for that update. Moving right along, I'd like to invite the State Minister in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, to greet us with his remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Honorable Minister, Senator Robin Hill, Moderator, Board Chairman, CAC, FTC, Donovan White, CEO, CAC, Ms. Dulcie Allen, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Ms. Sancia Bennett-Templer, our Executive Director, Fair Trading Commission, Mr. David Miller, our Chief Technical Director of MIIC, members of the media, board members of both CAC and FTC, good morning. The Consumer Affairs Commission, CAC, one of the agencies under this ministry that have taken a keen interest in, as it represents a composite of Jamaica's demographic at a personal level. I do not wish to be pedestrian about my remarks, but it is often forgotten that we are all consumers, regardless of the level or type of interactions we have in the marketplace. A consumer who is a business owner is protected under the Consumer Protection Act and other attending legislation as much as the end users of the products. This past 2.5 years, I've seen an increase in dynamism. The consumer, from a paternalistic relationship with businesses and communities to one of accelerated demand on product design, application, and service quality. So while the CAC may be the agency that protects the consumer, so to speak, the role is being redefined by the very population it represents. For instance, the digital transformation of the retail business, which is pioneered by the banking industry, has made a quantum leap into the next decade in just only a matter of 3 years. So, in doing so, the CAC adopted new rules in relation to Microcredit Act and the Data Protection Act by extending beyond the routine of advocacy and complaints resolution. The CAC has contributed to some critical pieces of legislation which are fundamental to the Jamaican economy in the next phase of the technology revolution. So let me take this opportunity to congratulate the CAC team for their contribution to the Microcredit Act being named as an agency of complaints handling. The draft code of conduct is being reviewed by the Bank of Jamaica, which will then be disseminated to other interest groups for consultations. Yesterday, participation in the sensitization training offered by the BOJ, I understand it was very successful. So, as a member of Parliament for Southeast St. Mary and a representative of the people, I am actually aware that it's extremely challenging for many consumers to navigate the digital space for basic services like pension payments, banking services, housing benefits, and utility companies. It is a challenging time for many families in Jamaica, not only because of the issues relating to access of connectivity, but also to the issues of adjustment in earnings. The CAC has redoubled its effort in consumer education and also a robust sensitization mechanism along all social media platforms. This is an effort to assist consumers in making sound decisions when undertaking transactions. As Jamaica continues the economic recovery from the hit of the pandemic, the FTC recognizes the critical role it must play to ensure the competitive markets be the cornerstone of such recovery. The flip side of a crisis is opportunity. Businesses are forced to review their strategies and innovate to meet the needs of consumers who have become more demanding with their expectations. The combination of a raise in consumers' expectations, the need for survival on the part of business augurs well for a strong recovery. The work of the FTC is to focus on those sectors and markets that are most impactful on the recovery of the economy. The FTC's work plan for the coming year includes assessment in areas such as construction, energy, electricity, telecommunications, and finance. The FTC is near its completion on market studies on digital payment systems and others into the wholesale supply of broadband services in the telecommunication industry. The digital payment study answers two critical questions regarding the electronic payment platforms available to consumers in Jamaica. One, what is the state of competition in the electronic payment platform market? And two, what is the level of participation of end users, that is the consumers and the merchants, on these electronic payment platforms? The other study on the supply of broadband services assesses the competition implications of the arrangements under which small cable TV operators access and pay for wholesale broadband services from sole providers in Jamaica. We expect the FTC will be making several recommendations that will strengthen the regulatory framework of the respective sectors. In January 2022, the FTC commenced a market study on hyperscalers to investigate the competitive effects of hyperscaling. FTC assesses, one, the disparity in the regulatory treatment contents delivered via traditional broadcasting compared to hyperscalers, and two, the ability to compete for advertising revenues. I therefore encourage all consumers and businesses alike to avail yourself of the services provided by these two vital and critical agencies as we chart the course in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise your families, do business, and to retire happily. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Minister. Very strong words there. I'd like to progress to hear from our key address provider this morning, and he is no other than our Minister himself, Senator the Honorable Obin Hill. Good morning again, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Donovan White, who is also Chairman of the Consumer Affairs Commission and the Fair Trading Commission, both rolled in one. And of course, I want to say, Minister Dr. Norman Dunn, who gave such a good outline as to what, especially focusing on the FTC, what FTC has done and must do in the future. Of course, I'm also recognizing our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Sansia Benetempler, and our Chief Technical Director, Ms. Michelle Parkins, who both I know are not in the room, but they're online. Mrs. Dulcie Allen, Chief Executive Officer of the CAC. She's been there, I think, probably from the first day of the CAC, if not very close. But Dulcie has a lot of experience in that area. Mr. David Miller, we heard first, Executive Director of the FTC, members of the Ministry, CAC, board members of both the CAC and the FTC, and of course, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. This is my first press conference with the FTC and CAC. Good to be here, and it's at a time when the first thing I had to deal with was the issue of price that Ms. Dulcie mentioned will be right on our priority list. Bank prices, bank charges, prices to consumers. I had to look very early at the fact that, you know, commodities have gone up significantly, inputs have gone up. I remember milk powder going up by 15%, hard dough bread by 22%, corned beef by over 50%, all those things that we eat, all the data I get from the CSC. So, you know, they can't hold me. I just said, Dulcie, what I'm here. But really, it's really salutary. You have to think seriously about what's going on in the business, in our commerce, in our commercial activities, because it's really putting a lot of stress on people. And we have to look at ways to find that. So thank you, Mr. Moderator, who chairs both, as I said, of the CAC and FTC, and is responsible, as he mentioned, but I'm emphasizing, for the very urgent and swift merger of both. You have a timeline, and I hope you can beat the timeline, because clearly we want to make sure that we get the efficiencies out of the merger and progress towards serving people in Jamaica. So we're looking forward to that. You have all heard reports from Ms. Dulcie Allen and Mr. Miller, the achievements due to date and for the fiscal year and their projections. I thank them both and their teams for the work that they have done and they continue to do. I have already shared with Mr. Miller and Mrs. Allen that the merger between the CAC and the FTC must be finalized in 6 months, and I just shared it with the chairman. We never had the privilege of talking on this before, but now it's out there in the public, so them are going to judge you, and them are going to judge me. So when you go public with things, you make yourself accountable. And that's what we're looking for, to make sure we are accountable for what we say we will do and what we must do in the ministry. If this ministry is committed to the ease of doing business, we must remove duplication and cut bureaucracy. I know that the two heads of the agencies, their boards and their teams, are committed to the process, and they will work fervently to ensure that this 6-month deadline is met. Our team at the ministry will monitor and will be available to support this process as needed. That's what we're here at the ministry to do, to make sure it's done. The transformation that the government is doing is important. as the GOJ, Government of Jamaica, works through this public sector transformation program, no doubt about the 22 agencies that we have in this ministry will also be affected in one way or another. Not just the CAC and the FTC, but as the transformation that Minister Clark, Minister of Finance, speaks about so often, and the Prime Minister refers to quite frequently, as that goes through, then other of our agencies will be affected. Central to this ministry's work is fostering relationship with our stakeholders, or manufacturers, or distributors, or traders, or consumers. We want to treat all of them fairly. As Ms. Allen and Mrs. Allen and her team do their interviews and research and checks, we want to make sure both sides are treated fairly, because both sides have issues, especially today. The supplier side have supply chain problems, container prices going up, they have issues. The consumers have severe personal, directly affecting me issues, and so we have to bear those in mind. These players are vital participants in Jamaica's industrial investment and commercial activities that are so important to economic growth, doing business well, and satisfying consumers' and businesses' needs, both sides. With a population of only about 3 million people and quite small per capita income, we need to retrain or focus on foreign markets to find markets for exports, and which we can encourage import much more. They can import much more from us. We must export. This is not in my speech, but I'm going to tell you this, because I keep telling everybody that I speak to since I come here. Jamaica has 3 million people, just under. Israel has about 9 million people, give or take a few. Singapore about the same amount. Singapore's size is smaller than St. Thomas, if I remember correctly. Israel is a small country in terms of geography. And frankly, they live in a very hostile environment, as their Prime Minister, when you meet him, will tell you. So Israel and Singapore could not get rich, and Singapore is amazingly rich, as is Israel. Singapore is 1 to 3 or 4 in the per capita income from the top. So if Qatar, because of oil prices, at the top, Singapore is probably at the 3 or 4. If Switzerland is number 2, maybe sometimes Singapore is number 1. So I'm saying these small countries, Israel and Singapore, are small. So they could not get rich selling to their 8 million people. And they have per capita income that is multiple times the size of ours. So we are not going to get rich as a country in Jamaica selling to only 3 million people with the kind of per capita income we have. We have to focus on exports. So we have to make sure we go out and find markets that will import from us. Many of our most successful local companies are those which have executed a targeted business strategy that includes exporting goods and services to other countries. You know them, I know them, and we need a lot more of them. Our businesses must be creative, innovative, and dynamic. Dynamic means when change happens, when something happens in China and lock down your container and supply chain gets tight and you can't collapse it easily, how do you innovate? What do you find? That's what our businesses must do, and that's what we must encourage them from the Ministry of Investment, of Industry, Investment and Commerce to do. We need to invest a lot more in research and development areas. Work with entities such as the Cannabis Licensing Authority, the Scientific Research Council, Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, all in this ministry, and the laboratories at our premier universities, and determine which of our local produce can be exploited to create new products that can be consistently produced to increase our export earnings. For this to happen, traders will have to become manufacturers and exporters. Traders will have to become investors. When I spoke to the distributive trades a couple of weeks ago, I made that point to them. You have been very good traders. You have capital. I know that. I was a banker. I know many of them from banking. So they can't tell me that they don't have money. So many of them I know have money. But we don't seem to invest in Jamaica. They don't go to the next step. If you're producing a product that has to be put in a pouch or a can, do you look at backward integration, invest in the pouch producing business or the can producing business or the whatever other business that you need to backward integrate with to make your product more wholesome in your business? We don't necessarily have that approach. So the ministry wants to encourage more of that. Where it exists, encourage it more. The Jamaica Manufacturers Association doing a good job, but we want to put our weight behind that and say this is where you have to go. You can't just be a trader. You have to be a developer of business. You have to make products. You have to create services that people want overseas that we can export to them. We need to establish Jamaica as a major player in the financial services business. The Jamaica International Financial Services Authority, JIFSA, under this ministry, Jamaica is seriously positioning itself to be a major player in the international financial services sector. JIFSA focus is on ensuring that the country's industry is developed on par with established centers, that it maintains strict adherence to international regulations and standards globally. You cannot be in the international financial services business and have people doubting that you are doing money laundering or you're doing trading in people. What's the term they use for that now? Where people trafficking, people trafficking, or drugs moving, or you're bringing in arms and making money out of it. That can't work. So JIFSA has been creating a robust and sophisticated legislative framework, formulating a competitive tax regime, and ensuring that we are fully prepared to take advantage of this new strategic opportunity. So we want to make sure, and if you are going to follow the rules, OECD, for instance, says you can't just put up a brass plate. You have to have a business, you have to have people employed, you have to report how much they're manufacturing and adding value to the product in your country. You can't just do fly-by-night. So we are not going to do fly-by-night, but we're seriously going to fly properly and through JIFSA, right, Doug? So we're going to fly because we cannot remain poor being so close to the largest market in the world, having one of the best legal systems that you have having a free currency exchange business that other countries don't have, and we have bright people who want to work. I mean, when you look at how our BPO sector has grown, with bright Jamaicans being trained, and they're doing well. So we know we can do it. Several bills, including the Trust Partnership Limited Act 2017, Partnership General Act 2017, and the International Corporate and Trust Services Providers Change of Name and Amendment Act 2021, have already been passed. I was involved in the 2021 bill. The Limited Liability Companies LLC bill is currently before Parliament. So we are taking the steps. We have two more pieces of legislation. The Limited Liabilities Companies Act is one of those two, and they're almost there. One is already in Parliament. Our nation is at a unique position to leverage brand Jamaica within the international companies registration industry, not only for entities doing business internationally, but also for international businesses doing business right here in Jamaica. In other words, we know the names around us. Many of those places, Jamaicans who run them. The top guys, of course, are who they are, but the guys who do the work and are the lawyers and the accountants are Jamaicans. Bring them home. Change and reason why we haven't had them, because we didn't change the legislation. We need to have the legislation and the government ministerial push to say, we're serious about this business. Come, look at our central bank, look at our legal system, and look at how we do our stuff. And we don't have to invite them because the OECD will blacklist you if you're not doing what is right. We know that. You have heard me speak before of foreign direct investments. This will help significantly, but our local businesses must invest more in this country for growth to be significant. And I am making our case right up there with the people who are doing buildings in individual homes, buildings in commercial buildings, building roads. Yes, we're putting in our claim for investment. We want investors to invest in creating goods and services, agro-processing, legal services for the financial services industry. We have all of that. We have CMU, UTech, we have NCU with bright people doing IT services. The financial digital task force, which I'm now about to chair, we need people in that industry so that we can invite many more people. One of the big four accounting firms does a lot of its back office work downtown Kingston. Many people don't even know that. When I get permission, I'll call their name. I'll be happy to call the names because we want people to know that this is happening here. So it is happening in Jamaica. We need to push it more, and this ministry is going to make sure we push that. So you've heard me speak of that, but I want local investors, not just foreign direct investors. Yes, I go to the Middle East. Yes, I'm going to the United States. Yes, I'm going elsewhere. We're inviting Caribbean investors to come here as well, wherever they come from, with clean money, using our clean, nice system that we have here and we're building. And but we also want local investors to invest in Jamaica. Those businesses with significant capital have to and need to invest in this country in meaningful ways to help us advance. Growth requires a relentless pursuit of partnerships that can continue to build on the foundation of strong economic policies which the Andrew Holness administration has laid. No question. We haven't increased taxes at no time in the past 6 years. In fact, about 2 years ago, Minister Nigel Clark gave back $14.5 billion in tax give back. And of course, we're not mentioning 1.5, which gave back the initial giveaway in 2016. So we haven't raised taxes. You think about this. We've gone through the toughest pandemic in 100 years, and we haven't gone to the market to borrow. Our currency, if we were borrowing, would not be at about 154 today, probably would be across 200. So Minister Clark and those of us in cabinet who work with him have done the job of making sure Jamaica remains stable, and we're recovering in the heart of a pandemic. And then there's Ukraine, but I'm sure somebody will ask me about that. So we require partnerships. These efforts will, over time, cushion the economic challenges being faced by small island developing states such as Jamaica. And we have no oil and no great natural resources of gas and so on to exploit. But Jamaica has bright minds, plenty of entrepreneurial spirit, a qualified workforce, and capital available on competitive terms. The banks here have capital. I'm going to stress this again. The Andrew Holness administration has not gone to the capital markets in Jamaica to suck out money out of the economy, which is what used to happen for decades. The government goes and borrows and borrows and borrows at hugely expensive rate. We couldn't pay it back. We almost folded on the IMF. Good work by both sides brought it back. So Minister Clark is very clear. He has one trajectory for his growth. Watch my right hand. It must go down. Him don't want it to go up because we have been there and we know what the price of that is. So we don't want to go back there. So through this pandemic, this government never overborrowed, never borrowed, got through it, getting through it, and is beginning to grow again. Really quite amazing. And our international partners are noticing it because we're one of the best in the business getting through this pandemic. My ministry is committed to our role as business enablers. We like business. We like fair business, hence the Fair Trade Commission. We like consumers to be treated fairly, hence the Consumer Affairs Commission. We want businesses to thrive, hence the enabling and facilitation which this ministry will do. And this ministry pledges to serve you all, consumers, businesses, fairly. We want to cut out the red tape that makes business difficult and put obstacles in your way. And we will use all the resources at our disposal and the collaboration we can do with our other ministries to make this a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. That was quite stirring. I made a few notes. I just wanted to recap the highlights as I have them, just for the benefit of our audience online. 6 things I made mention here. Tell me if I've missed any, sir. First, you want us to complete our merger in 6 months. As challenging as I know my board will find that.
I like how you make yourself accountable. I appreciate that.
Well, we serve, we stand to serve, and we stand to do our best to ensure that we meet the timeline. And where we will fall short, no doubt there are areas that are out of our control, that we will ensure that you are fully informed, and that we can pull on your help to ensure that we can cross those hurdles. You mentioned the 2 sides of business, supply and demand. So important in the Jamaican economy and in Jamaican space. And we know you will continue to push that conversation, especially with your next point, which is tackling the issue of export and developing markets within Jamaica to provide for goods and services export as an industry that we can grow from. And of course, for that to happen, you talked about manufacturing and production, which there's no export without us creating more by way of innovation and creativity. The financial services has a massive role to play in all of this, because if you're going to create new markets or new opportunities within market, the financial services have to come to play and have to avail capital at competitive rates for businesses to take advantage. And then the last point I noted was the issue of foreign direct investment, as well as local investors seizing the opportunity to invest in Jamaica in these areas. So, sir, those are strong 6 points that we've noted. There are many other things that you spoke about, but I believe that they're contained succinctly in those 6 points. And we will certainly, the FTC and the CAC will be guided by those guiding lights that you have provided. So we have run the gamut of our agenda today, and I will only now be left to invite. Are we inviting questions? Do we have any questions that are in the chat that we can have read to the room so that the respective persons can provide responses? Or if we're doing live questions, we can begin to do that now. Thank you.
I think I'd like to say thanks to JIS and our PR team here at the ministry, Ms. Reed and her team, Mrs. Reed and her team, for putting this together. I haven't had any responses yet, but it's, from where I'm sitting, it looks good. So thank you all for making this quite a bit of, if you see all the machinery they have here, people just sometimes think that it just comes to you on TV. It just does come like that. Miss Reed and her team and their people here from early in the morning, setting up machines and testing, and I want to give my appreciation and thanks to them.
And to strengthen that point as well, Minister, they work very closely with the PR and Communications Subcommittee of our board.
There you go.
That have worked continually every quarter to ensure that this event happens. Okay. So we'll have you here in 3 months again to reflect on some of those 6 points.
And thanks to you, to your PR team as well.
Thank
Clearly
you.
I'm learning who are involved.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw Jay, I saw Jay.
That's fine. That's fine. We have a question here. It says, what is the extent of work already done under the CAC-FTC merger? What engagements remain to be completed? And what will the administrative structure look like on completion of the overall exercise? I believe that was meant
Just
for me.
for you.
We have done quite a bit of work already. In fact, quite a bit of work was done ahead of this board by the transformation unit of government, and what the board has done is to take the recommendations in discussions with the TIU. We have made some further tweaks and adjustments with their assistance. And so we are, the merger committee is locked on working through the administrative side of that merger now to bring the as they say, the back-end services that support both organizations together. We are slated, I believe, to move into a single outfit or single building by June, I believe, Ms. Dalsey, Mr. Miller, I think it's June, July? Looks like maybe further on, but if we're staying within 6 months, then we may have to work to pull that forward. And that may, as I say, there are some things that are out of our control because that will require some amount of procurement that we are going have to be guided by and have to go through the process of the government procurement, which can be time consuming. So as I said, we are trying to finish the administrative side by managing the pieces of handling the staffing, assignment of roles, recreation of job descriptions. We have to deal with the issues of compensation analysis. We have to deal with the issues of budgeting from the perspective of gaining the efficiencies that the merger has sought to do. So there is still a significant amount, a significant body of work that is to be completed. The team is challenged to get to a place of one where the administrative side is concerned. The other side of the merger, which is even more difficult, of course, is the legislative framework. As you know, Minister, the person who asked the question, both the CAC and the FTC operate on two separate legislative frameworks, the Consumer Protection Act and the Fair Trading Act. Both have nuances that are similar, and both have nuances that are very different. And so the legal framework for that is being treated at the policy level, at the ministry. And we are, the merger committee is waiting to be guided more directly on some of those nuances as they will change and when that will be brought forward to.
Checking with the PS.
Yes, yes. So we're managing the two sides of this merger to be able to get to your marching orders of 6 months. But as I say, there are areas that are and will be out of our control that we continue to manage as carefully as we possibly can. Hope that answers your question for the person who asked. Next one, Javon Keys of TVJ is asking, please go ahead with your, sorry. Oh, Javon Keys, please go ahead with your question, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So my question is a follow-up to the one on the timeline or what's been done so far regarding the merger. I wanted to find out what's the expected cost associated with the merger and also what are the expected cost savings associated with this merger. So that's my first question. My second question will go to Ms. Allen, and this is surrounding possibly the expansion of surveillance by the CAC, looking at particularly there's this paradigm of online storefronts through social media. And I know it may be a little tricky to monitor those, but is the CAC looking to maybe expand its surveillance? Because we are getting lots of reports of persons being scammed through these online storefronts. So what do people need to look for? Is the CAC looking at zoning into those businesses?
Okay, so let me take the first one and then I'll hand over to Mrs. Allen, Javon. As it relates to the cost to achieve, I will ask for some patience from the media. We are still doing quite a bit of analysis on the areas that I spoke of, particularly on the administrative side. We're still doing the analysis of those changes that will be made or has to be made for the merger to be effective. And that will come out in our budget adjustments, which are likely to affect or likely to become more condensed and that we're able to articulate them better, I believe, in our next press briefing, which will be a quarter from now. So I ask for some continued patience on the media for us to be able to provide that kind of detailed information. Mrs. Allen?
Okay. We are aware that the landscape has changed significantly as it relates to commercial activities. And so a lot of persons are shopping online. Jamaica, like many other countries, we are a little lagging behind as it relates to the legislation as it relates to technology. But there are some legislation that are in place that we are working with. We continue to advise consumers as to how they can be a little more careful in shopping online. You know, do the necessary checks and don't just go online. We have had situations where a person go online to buy a motor vehicle and they would have paid over $1.5 million. There is no address, there is nothing at all, you know, and then the deal goes bad, and then we are now left with in resolving the issues. So the whole thing of jurisdiction and so on is an issue still we are working through, but we are encouraging consumers to arm yourself with information and do some planning before you actually do the onlines. Ensure that you have safe websites that you're dealing with. Ensure that you have information and check with your friends, you know. Share information so you can protect yourself. But we are actually working along with authorities as it relates to the legislation.
Are there any other questions, comments? No more questions. What? It appears we have been clear as mud, they say. So with that said, I would like to thank Minister and both ministers for your time this morning, for joining us. This has been another indie edition of Jamaica Consumer Talks, another effort by both the CAC, the FTC, working in collaboration with our parent ministry, Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, to ensure that we not only provide detailed information or correct information as it relates to what's happening in our consumer and competition space, but also that we continue to communicate effectively, or as effectively as we possibly can. As I'm wrapping up, I'm hearing there's one last question, and this one is for Mrs. Allen. It says, what are the consumer outreach activities being implemented and how effective have these been? Also, which are the agencies that the CAC is partnering with under the policy mentioned?
Okay, as it relates to outreach activities, we are using quite a bit of technology now, just to advise persons that in terms of the technology, the CAC is about a 95% digitized as it relates to our activities. So we do quite a bit of our outreach activities using Facebook Live, using just right, all different social media platforms. So, and we're also partnering with a number of agencies that do consumer education as well. So you have like the Bank of Jamaica, for example, you have the Financial Services Commission, you have the OUR, you have the Bureau of Standards, National Compliance and Regulatory Authority. Those are some of the agencies that we partner with to get information out. As we know, there is a challenge with budget, so we try to see how best we can piggyback and how we can share the resources as we empower our consumers, which is the same constituents that we all serve, really. And the other part of the question is the internal policies, basically those same agencies that I mentioned, the Fair Trading Commission, Bureau of Standards, the NCRA, Anti-Dumping, Trade Board, yeah. And we have the Ministry of Finance as well. We have Bank of Jamaica. We have Financial Services Commission. It's quite a wide spread because many agencies, as I said before, have some consumer protection component to their mandate. So we have pulled in all of those.
All right. Thank you, Dulcie. And with that, we won't take any more questions, but just to remind all available and who are listening, World Consumer Rights Day 2022 is March 15th, and it's under the theme Fair Digital Finance. And so the CAC will have its plan fully delineated and provided through the various channels to the market, and will also ensure that we keep you up to date on all the areas that you can engage with us on World Consumer Rights Day and participate in the conversation around the theme. So with that, again, I want to thank our minister for availing himself today, and thank my two EDs, David from the FTC and Dulcie from CAC, and thank you for your time this morning with us. Thanks again, and talk soon.
Thank you all very much.
Come ring the alarm. The dust has finally settled. The day of reckoning has arrived. Only two sounds have been left standing. Rough Cut and Kush International. All scores will be settled this Saturday night, February 26th, 10 p.m. in the final showdown of Echoes of Sound Systems. It's a dancehall thing. Who will be the Reggae Month 2022 champion sound? Will it be Rough Cut?
Rough Cut! Power up to them,
Will
boy.
it be Kush International?
Kush International!
Catch all the action on PBCJ, JCDC Facebook page and across social media this Saturday, February 26, 10 p.m. Echoes of Sound Systems. Another exciting Reggae Month event.